Graders, pencil eraser for sure again today, because this is going to be another one where you might want to sometimes straighten out your lines a little bit, and your book. All right, here we are, 12.9. This word is halves. So this is kind of a funny thing. If we have 1/2, whoops, that's a pencil. You're not going to be able to see that very well. If we have 1/2, we spell it like this. But when we talk about having more halves, we switch that F to a V and add ES. That's really strange, isn't it? It looks like halves, but it's halves. So how can a shape be separated into two equal shares? That's what we're really exploring today. So guys, we're pretending these are sandwiches. Do you see the little bit of lettuce sticking out around the sandwiches? So we're sharing the sandwich here. We want to cut it so everybody gets an equal share. Same thing with this sandwich, but we want to cut them two different ways. So here's one way you could divide that sandwich. Over here, go ahead and choose a different way. There are lots of ways, aren't there? There's this way, there's this way, there's this way. You divide it so everybody could get an equal share. Now, boys and girls, here's the funny thing down here, right? That sandwich is in half now, isn't it? Will all 4 friends get the same amount of sandwich? They will. Even though this piece looks really different from this piece, this is half of the square and this is half of the square, there's the same amount of sandwich here as there. Now, it's not, yesterday we talked about how you could stack the equal halves on each other. They're not really equal in that way that you could stack them on, but if we could measure them, if we could weigh them, there would be the same amount of sandwich in each one. That's a little odd. That's an idea that you'll explore more in future years in other math classes. All right. So these two equal shares make one whole. So we've had a lot of words here that we've been adding in, and some of them, like equal, you're familiar with, right? And shares and whole, these are all words that you're familiar with, but you want to make sure that you really know how they are in math. In math, when we talk about a whole, that means we mean one. This thing not chopped up into any parts. But then when we have halves, we've separated it into two equal shares. Is half of the circle larger or smaller than the whole circle? Well, I hope that answer is kind of obvious for you guys. Here's a half. Is that larger or smaller than the whole thing? I mean, that should be, I hope that's obvious. All right, draw a line to show halves. Here, just like on the previous page, do it 2 different ways. And here also do it 2 different ways. Now, boys and girls, you can see these are squares, and here we have rectangles. So the easy way is to do it this way and this way. I want to show you something here on number 4. You don't have to divide it this way, but you could. Remember how we've done these opposite corners before with a diagonal? Now, if I took this and I just flipped it over here, it wouldn't fit on top of that triangle. But if you want to, you could divide it this way, and you don't need this page of your book anymore. You could get your scissors and cut this out and cut this out. In fact, I am going to do this right now just to show you. Just to make sure you know. You might already know this. I'm going to cut out this rectangle here. And then show you what I'm talking about, just to make sure, because, you know, with math, a really important thing is to think flexibly, right? To be able to think about different ways of getting an answer. So yesterday I had talked about how if you fold it over on that line, right, it'll stack right on top of itself. Oh, come on here. So here it is, corner to corner. And you can see that does not stack on top of itself, does it? Let me cut it here. That's the back side of the paper where all that writing was. All right. So you can see when I take this and I try to flip it over, it doesn't work. But remember, I can turn it also. And if I turn it around, then it does fit. So you can do triangles on rectangles. You just have to make sure that they're straight, opposite corner to opposite corner. All right. That was just a little bonus. Didn't actually have to do that. Okay, circle the shapes that show halves. So guys, I'll show you in this row. Oops, that's my pencil again. In this row, there are 2 that show halves, right? It has to be equal shares, just like we did yesterday. in this row, well, I'm not even going to tell you how many because I'll just give you the answer. In this row, there are 2 that have equal shares that are halves. Use the picture, write numbers to solve. The picture shows halves. Now, of course, it shows halves. How many halves does it show? The blank equal shares, how many equal shares make blank whole? How many wholes do we have here? All right, guys, last page. Color half of each shape. So you know these are already in equal halves, right? So color, well, they can't be halves if they're not equal. They're already in equal shares. They're halves. So color half of each shape. Linus cut a circle into equal shares. He traced one of the parts. Can you see this? Write half of or halves to name the part. So is this half of a circle, or is this halves a circle? That's not very clear. I'm just going to tell you, it's half of. It's not really clear exactly what they're wanting you to learn there, so don't worry about that. You're supposed to write half of a circle because that's how we say it. 3 different ways to show halves. That whole triangle thing I did, that's what you're going to use here, because you can do this way and you can do this way, but then now you're going to have to do it triangly. All right, and which shows halves. You guys can do that. All right, my friends, send me a picture of that 4th page and you are done with math for this week.